My research topic assignment was to find out how General George Washington implemented spy rings during the Revolutionary War and how he applied the knowledge he learned to his larger military planning. Washington historically is remembered as a man of the highest moral and personal character, with tales of him not being able to tell a lie. However, as general and commander of the Continental Army, Washington found sound intelligence vital. With an undermanned, ill-equipped, and untrained army, Washington knew any intelligence on the British would be vital in his success and the success of the Continental Army. Washington is often cited as America's first spy master, an interesting title bestowed on someone who was so cognizant of his public image and placed such a high significance on moral and personal character. Washington notably was influential in the founding and organizing of the Culper Spy Ring. This group of American loyalists covertly gathered intelligence and relayed information back to Washington during the British occupation of New York in 1778. While men played the most prominent roles in military actions during the Revolutionary War, spycraft during this time period included many significant contributions from females. This work seeks to find how Washington developed an effective spy ring and applied that valuable information he garnered into his larger military operations. The research question I was looking to answer was, how did Washington develop an effective spy ring and apply that valuable information into his larger planning and operations? At the start of the Revolutionary War, George Washington was faced with a multitude of significant issues concerning him as the commander of the Continental Army. At its inception, while being the commander, Washington was the only member of the Continental Army. Through recruiting efforts, the numbers increased, but throughout the war, Washington was typically outnumbered from a personnel and arms standpoint. The soldiers that were recruited on the whole had minimal to no military experience or training. The Continental Congress and Washington were often at odds in financial support to the Army. All of these issues placed Washington in a position where failure and collapse of the Army often felt near. Due to this, Washington had to make effective logistical and operational choices if the colonists were to be successful. With every decision being so important, Washington developed what many considered America's first spy ring, affectionately making Washington the first spy master. The intel he garnered from his sources were fundamental in his military planning and ultimate success. The Culper spy ring became the most famous of the patriotic espionage networks. The spy's cover was so secure that Washington himself did not know the identity of many of the most important agents, and the existence of the ring and its success were not made public for quite some time. The Culper spy ring originated between letters between Abraham Woodhull and his friend Benjamin Tallmadge in the summer of 1778, when Woodhull would report to Tallmadge on British troop movements from his farm. Abraham Woodhull was a Long Island farmer by trade, and he was a friend with Benjamin Tallmadge, who was an adjutant in the American Army. They enlisted 8 others to help create the Culper spy ring and to spy on the British in New York. In order to keep British sympathizers at bay, they created certain methods that could be used, such as coding, abbreviations, letter drops, invisible ink, aliases, misspelled letters, and not using paper money. Washington's efforts and investment into intelligence gathering played a significant role throughout the Revolutionary War. Information from the Culper ring helped inform Washington on British movements and numbers. This aided Washington during the campaigns in and around New York. Washington also used this information to mislead Clinton in believing he was going to attack New York when the Americans ended up going south to meet up with the French in Virginia to defeat Cornwallis at Yorktown. The consequences for being caught as a spy were severe. Numerous spies on both sides were executed. Several notable spies that were executed included Nathaniel Hale, who was caught spying on the British in New York and famously uttered the last words, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." And on the British side, Major John Andre, who was working with Benedict Arnold to capture West Point. The British tried unsuccessfully to have Arnold returned, but when they refused to trade Arnold for Andre, he, like Hale, was hanged. While a great majority of the fighting during the Revolutionary War was conducted by men, several females became significant contributors throughout the American and British spy networks. Some of these women included Anna Smith Strong, who was a member of the Culper spy ring and famously hung her laundry in specific patterns as a code; Anna Bates, who was a school teacher in Philadelphia and helped spy on the Americans; and Peggy Shippen, who was originally involved with British Major John Andre and eventually marries Benedict Arnold. Peggy Shippen was known to hide coded messages in her letters. Raymond's book on Washington's intelligence measure quotes George Beckwith, one of the British Army spy masters in the colonies during the Revolutionary War, as saying Washington didn't really outfight the British, he simply outspied us. And Brian Kilmeade in Dying Jaeger stated, the few American troops still holding Manhattan were hanging on by a thread, and Washington was desperate to strengthen their support. To do so, he would need to spy, to collect information on the British plans. Espionage was not a new activity to Washington, having fought in the French and Indian War and served as a spy himself. He understood the roots of the present conflict and the insight that would frame the use of this intelligence in the Revolution. And Alexander Rose and Washington's spies described Washington's methodology of collecting and utilizing information. This is a quote from Washington. It says, it is by comparing a variety of information that we are frequently able to investigate facts which are so intricate or hidden that no single clue could have led to the knowledge of them.